And so I basically wanted to talk about the political economy of media arts, ask what is it that we are preparing our students for, what kind of economy they're entering. But in order to address that question, I first want to talk about certain myths that prevail in media arts, especially this refusal to actually talk about the production of culture, refusal to talk about economics, and situate it historically in the development of the arts as an independent field. So the iconic artist, the hippie who doesn't want to hear anything about money at all, this sort of separation that exists in media colleges such as ours, where we see this very clear opposition between the broadcasting people who look like this and the men in the suit and the artist hippie. Just to give you an anecdote, the budget cuts that are happening everywhere are very much in place here, and we recently got a note asking for serials that should be cut in the library. And my department, which is cinema and photography, the one serial everybody said without even thinking twice was Variety. Cut that out. That's all about business. We never read anything about business. And that is the only journal that does deal with business and economics. And it was like, who reads that? And he does. And so I said, well, let's share the costs with radio, TV. And let's keep the journal. So I want to put this kind of separation that we see between art and broadcasting and actually show to you that they're actually mirror images. This opposition is really false, but to just go with the opposition a little bit, the broadcasting side will openly say that media production is a business like any other. It is for profit. We produce for consumers, for clients, for audiences, whether they're defined as segmented or niche audiences or for a mass audience. They study media institutions. Over in my field, in the arts, the argument is that we're actually autonomous, we're independent, we're an independent field. We produce art for the sake of art and don't bring these kind of economic issues in discussion. We actually produce for oneself. In student critiques, students will say, I just produce for myself. We produce for peers, that is other artists, or we produce for specialized audiences such as the gallery, the museum, or the art critic. Now, of course, all these ideas are not the products of just people's minds. They're out there. And we're actually echoing these ideas to then just continue in the broadcasting side, and I put journalism there. Efface the author. The whole training is to actually efface the work of the individual author, whereas we foreground the author, we foreground like the eccentricity, the strangeness, the complete mystery of the artist, their originality and vision, while in the tradition of the business model, the emphasis is on skills, on conventions, so professionalism, on objectivity. They foreground the audience, actually assume a very simple correspondence between the producers and the consumers. So Hollywood produces what we want, which is why you should read Eileen's book, Why TV is Not Our Fault, to understand why they're actually not as democratic as they pretend to be. On the art side, we foreground the art object. So we study the object itself, the form. We will talk about innovations in form. We talk about history of art in terms of movements, authors, genres. Okay, so what are the then underlying assumptions? The suit believes in the free market and sees the free market as this collection of individuals who make deals that are in their best interest. So they believe in supply and demand. We just give consumers what we want. And the best rises to the top. So if your film flopped, then it was not a good film. So New York Times film reviews, for example, mention the amount of money that was spent in making a film, as if that has anything to do with, the quality of a film. For the arts people, the hippies, success in the market is actually a compromise. If you succeeded, then you're kind of out of that. We don't talk to them. And Pierre Bourdieu, whose work I find just immensely helpful, a sociologist, and I really think we need to be doing more sociology in media arts, calls it an anti-economy. So it's this exceptional economy. It seems to actually be a reversal. It seems to be like the opposite of this economy. In fact, there's a very, what he calls a cultivated disinterestedness in money. And that is carefully cultivated. It is part of this language around the anti-economy. But the anti-economy is actually very economic. It is based in economics. At the top, you have what Bourdieu calls the merchants in the temple. These are the banks that buy art. These are the funders. Then there are also actually the very successful artists are as slick as any suit. They're good at self-promotion, at careerism, and so on. And at the bottom of that economy, you actually, and that's what we learn from political economy. If you want to understand something, go to the grassroots, and from there you look at the top and you'll get what the whole structure is. It is basically an economy which induces risk-taking behavior. And it induces that behavior and is also able to sustain it. So in that anti-economy, you're likely to succeed only if you have some independent sources of money or wealth. Then you can have that disinterestedness in the economy. And it also induces that kind of risk-taking behavior. It validates it as the correct artistic way to be. Hans Abing, another sociologist, has written a wonderful book called Why Are Artists Poor? And he describes how then artists participate through this kind of ideological definition of artists as independent of the economy, how they persist in being poor because they too buy into the idea that the one who succeeds will become wealthy, and sort of being poor is this price that has to be paid for one's art. You can read Terry Eagleton's Ideology of the Aesthetic, where he talks about the aesthetic as is a fundamental kind of ideological trick that capitalism plays. It makes the artist is a petty bourgeois, makes this claim on originality. And that claim on originality stops them from falling into the ranks of the proletariat, who have nothing but their time to sell. And so the artist makes that claim on originality. At the top are, of course, those artists who have the greatest cultural capital. So they can demand a price for their work. They can actually assert copyright and so on. But at the bottom of that ladder, you cannot. What I want to actually talk about is the new economy, this economic crisis that we're in the midst of, the current wave of capitalist crisis, in which this kind of autonomy of the arts is going to shrink. The autonomy of the arts always shrinks in moments of economic crisis. It's an affluent economy that can actually sustain and support that kind of autonomous art field. So what we're seeing more generally is this kind of freelancing, entrepreneurial, you're dependent on yourself, flexible mode of production. And John Caldwell, who's studied work in Hollywood, really done this ethnography of workers in Hollywood, describes very, very well this economy where not only are you paid less and less, but actually you work for free till you begin to actually earn money. And the artist then, rather than be this independent of the economy or part of the anti-economy, is actually the ideal worker of the new economy. So they embody this kind of precarious living, being able to just pick up a computer or their design software and be learning on the job and living in this kind of precarious economy. So what might actually, that should have come a little earlier. That this affluent economy that I was talking about, which was the post-Second World War kind of growing economy in the United States, producing culture was very much part of it. That was part of the ways in which consumers were produced. It was the dynamism of US capital. That's how it won the working class to it. But now we can expect that working class consumerism has to decline. The working class has to actually get used to consuming less. And that's the kind of economy that we're preparing our students to enter into. And education is not just about skills and training for the job market. As we all know, it is also about aspirations. It's about the kinds of aspirations we build in our students. And if we stay committed to that kind of art as an autonomous field, we are presenting them with the aspiration of either becoming a star artist at the top, which I've said is becoming increasingly limited, or at the lower end, become a worker in the cultural industry, do this kind of flexible multimedia conceptual work. Now, if this is where most will fall, but the aspiration that we have built is one of becoming this kind of star artist, you will experience failure. And failure can be a lesson that one can learn from. Failure, as we all learn from all the times we've fallen flat on our faces in our lives. So it can be a lesson, and people go through a system and come out. And they deal with failure. You can make failure bearable by understanding why you failed, why that happened. And I wouldn't want to just push people out to fail, knowing better and one. I think as teachers, we should know better and look more into the future than our students are. And so I think we should be talking to them about these economic issues. We should be teaching them about art and mass media as institutions. We should end this kind of false split that we create between the suit and the hippie, where they are all about economics and we're not. Because by creating that false opposition, we create an environment in which students see that lived out. And then you throw them out in the real world where that kind of split just does not exist. It's an artificial reality. It's an artificial theater that we have set and produced for our students. Artists do and can provide critique, and they combine with social movements and play part in it. I don't think my discussion of talking about the economics of this production of culture in any way denies that. But it calls for politics. It calls for an understanding that has to go beyond this kind of art for its own sake or its mirror image, which is the market-oriented broadcaster. And so we have to bring like social critical theory, political economy in the broadest way back into the art school, and kind of end this specialization of arts education as this production of culture for an autonomous sector. Thank you.